Hey, I'm Olivia, and let me just start by saying I'm kind of ashamed to even be sharing this story, but you know what? Listen to it all the way through, it's worth it. I promise. I'm 49 years old, and to be completely honest, I haven't exactly been living the most exciting life these past few years. I'm single, work a lot, and most nights I'm just too tired to do much more than wind down with some quiet time at home. If you'd asked me a month ago, I'd have told you I was fine with it, but a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, I just had this impulse. It was almost like I suddenly realized just how routine my life had become. Maybe I was in denial about how lonely I was feeling, but that night it hit me that I needed a break from the same old, and just like that, I decided I was going to do something about it. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I decided to go out to a club. I know I haven't been to one in maybe 10 years. The idea felt completely ridiculous, but there was this little voice in my head saying, why not? So I'm standing in my closet looking at my clothes, and I'll admit I felt a little ridiculous here. I am a 49-year-old woman about to put on stockings and heels to go out to a club like I am my 22nd, but that night something just clicked in me. I told myself I deserved to feel good, to have a little fun. I wasn't going to overthink it. I started picking out an outfit, and I'll be honest, it had been a long time since I put effort into dressing up like that. I decided on a black dress, something classic but a bit fitted, and just above the knee I slipped on some sheer stockings and found a pair of heels that I hadn't worn in years but somehow still fit perfectly. As I was getting ready, I noticed myself actually starting to get excited, a feeling I hadn't felt in who knows how long. I brushed my hair until it had a nice shine to it, added just a touch of makeup to freshen up, and gave myself one last look in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of confidence. Getting into the car, I felt my nerves kicking in. I mean, what was I even doing? Part of me wondered if I just walked into that club, feel out of place, and leave within 5 minutes, but I pushed that thought out of my head and told myself, Olivia, just go with it and have some fun. If you don't like it, you can leave. The drive went quickly, and before I knew it, I was standing outside the building. I could hear the sound banging from inside. My heart seemed to speed to meet the pace as I took a deep breath, straightened my outfit, and went in. Inside, the club was dimly lit with neon lights and a traditional smoky, almost ominous atmosphere. It was weird to be back in that setting after so many years. Groups of friends were clustered at tables, already drinking and laughing. Some people were up on the dance floor, losing themselves to the music. It was a little overwhelming at first. The mix of lights, sounds, and people made me feel a little out of place, but I tried to remind myself that no one was looking at me or wondering why I was there, so I did what any nervous, slightly out of practice woman would do. I headed straight for the bar. I found a spot at the bar counter, slid into it, and felt like I could use something to take the edge off, so I started with a glass of wine and drank it gently while taking in my surroundings. The more I stayed there, the more comfortable I felt. Watching people laugh, flirt, and dance, it made me feel less like an outsider and more like I was part of the scene. I could feel myself loosening up, and by the end of my first glass, I was smiling for no apparent reason. After ordering a second drink, I spotted a guy who had approached the bar a few chairs away from me. He appeared to be younger than me, maybe in his early to mid-20s. He exuded confidence with a comfortable posture and a casual yet attentive look. I found myself staring over at him, not expecting anything, just wondering. He must have seen my attention because he glanced over, met my gaze, and smiled slightly. I tried to be casual, but I could feel my cheeks warming. I'm blushing like a schoolgirl, I thought to myself, amused and a little uncomfortable. As the night progressed, I watched him gaze over at me several more times. I ordered another drink, feeling a bit bolder and less worried about how out of place I could appear. He eventually went closer, ordering his own drink, and there was unconscious recognition between us. The club was loud and the music was throbbing, making it easy to avoid awkward small conversations. We exchanged a few glances, and in the warm, hazy light of the club, I felt a surge of energy that I hadn't felt in years. I realized I'd had enough beers, that my uneasiness had almost vanished, replaced by a boldness I hadn't felt in decades. I stared at him again, keeping his gaze a bit longer this time, and his face indicated that he was also fascinated. The attraction was unmistakable. I hadn't even spoken to him yet, but there was this magnetic pull. Finally, I let myself really think about it. Why shouldn't I let go and have a little fun? It had been so long since I'd let myself even entertain the idea of meeting someone like this, and here was this guy, young and attractive, giving me his attention. It was a moment I didn't want to let pass by. With my confidence growing, I glanced over again, giving him a look that was, if I'm being honest, probably a bit flirtier than I had intended, but it worked. Before I knew it, we were standing close enough that I could feel the heat between us. He didn't ask my age, and I didn't volunteer it in that moment. It didn't matter. I felt a thrill rush through me as we got the conversation barely even registered over the music, but the chemistry between us was undeniable. I felt like I was reliving a part of my life I'd left behind, and it felt exhilarating. At some point, the decision was just made, unspoken but clear. The drinks, the lights, and the energy in the room had all led up to that moment. I knew that I wanted him, and I wasn't going to let this chance slip away. I reached out, touching his arm, a gesture that made it clear I wanted more than just a casual chat, and just like that, we both knew exactly where the night was heading. We ended up slipping out of the club and catching a taxi together. The air outside was cool, almost sobering, but I felt so alive. There was an unspoken understanding between us, no need for words, just a mutual anticipation that seemed to make the ride fly by. My heart was racing, and I felt a mix of excitement and nerves, almost like I was doing this for the first time. Once we reached my place, I let him in, fumbling a little with my keys, and my slight clumsiness only made the situation feel more real and thrilling. Inside, I could sense his presence filling my small space, the warmth of him close behind me. I kicked off my heels as he closed the door behind us, and there was this electricity in the air, something that had built up from the moment we walked into the club and had been simmering ever since. I didn't feel rushed, but I also didn't want to overthink anything. I knew what I wanted, and I let that lead me. I felt his hand graze my arm, and the simple contact felt more intense than anything I'd experienced in a long time. It wasn't just that he was younger, it was that he had this confident yet gentle way about him that made me feel completely at ease. Even as my heart kept beating faster, he was in any hurry, and that patience, that control, made the moment even more intimate, like he knew exactly what he was doing. As his hands moved down on my arms, he gently guided me to turn toward him, his eyes meeting mine with a look that said everything. There was something incredibly reassuring in the way he looked at me. It made me feel seen, respected, and desired in a way I hadn't felt in so long. It felt like he was there for me truly, and in that moment, I felt comfortable letting my guard down completely. I could feel his fingers tracing over the fabric of my dress, his touch light but intentional, moving with a sort of confidence that was so grounding yet so thrilling at the same time. His hand found its way to my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt myself melt into him, letting myself be completely taken by the moment he began to slide the fabric of my dress upward, his hands moving slowly, his touch gentle yet firm, and every inch felt like a new sensation. As I leaned into him, when my dress slipped from my shoulders, his hands discovered the delicate texture of my stockings and traced them with a slow, deliberate touch. There was something about the way he focused on the minor things, the stockings, the lace, and the softness of each layer made the sensation almost reverent. He was clearly taking his time, relishing each moment, and I sensed a degree of closeness that went beyond physical desire. As he went on, I found myself fully immersed in each touch, each soft caress. He took the time to explore, with his fingertips traced the line of my stockings, creating patterns that felt like small sparks on my skin. With his palm neatly stroked across naked flesh, it seemed as if the warmth of his touch had been multiplied, and all senses were heightened. I was completely present experiencing feelings I hadn't felt in what seemed like decades, and I let myself simply enjoy it. Once we were alone in the warmth of my place, things began to unfold naturally. There was an undeniable energy between us, something that had started in the club and was building ever since. As I slipped out of my dress, I felt his hands firm yet gentle as he took his time, savoring every little detail, his touch focused and steady, creating this kind of slow, burning intensity. When he started to undress, though, I felt a mix of excitement and awe as he revealed himself fully. I caught sight of him, and yes, he was extremely big. When I say big, I mean that huge that I've never seen in my life. For a second, I felt a little surprised, maybe a little shy, but I quickly let go of those thoughts, deciding to just enjoy the moment for what it was. I come this far, and there was no sense in holding back now. I decided, why not? This was something I hadn't experienced in ages, and there was something so liberating about just going with it. He moved with a steady rhythm, guiding each movement with care that surprised me. He seemed focused on making sure I was as comfortable and as taken care of as possible. The way he moved, attentive and present, made me feel like he truly saw me, like I wasn't just anyone to him, but someone he genuinely wanted to connect with. And I felt myself opening up more with each passing moment. At one point, as we moved closer, I found myself kneeling in front of him, my stockings still on, feeling a mix of shyness and confidence that felt exhilarating and new. His hand moved to my hair, holding it softly, and I could feel the warmth of his hand, steady and reassuring. The way he held me in that moment felt grounding, like he understood the delicate balance of strength and gentleness that made everything feel both intimate and safety. Intensity built in a way that felt completely natural, as if every gesture was guided by mutual respect and understanding. The connection between us wasn't just physical, it was layered with a sense of trust that made the experience feel deeply meaningful. I felt valued and seen, and the whole experience became something far beyond a single night, filled with warmth and a connection that I hadn't realized I was missing. As the night came to a close, we settled together in a peaceful silence. Logan placed his arm around me in a reassuring and intimate embrace. At first, the intensity of the moment made me tense, with the new sensation heightened by his size, but Logan was patient, moving gently, paying attention to my comfort and allowing me time to acclimate. He remained attentive, making sure I was at ease, which helped me overcome my first discomfort. Soon, I relaxed into the sensation, and any trepidation faded, replaced by an extraordinary sense of connection and intimacy. In that moment, I understood it wasn't simply the physical feelings that made it so unforgettable. It was the emotional depth, trust, and kindness he demonstrated. He was completely there, and I found myself absorbed in every aspect of the event, feeling more open and alive than I had in years. That night turned out to be one of the finest and most meaningful experiences of my life, a wonderful reminder of the possibilities that exist when you open yourself and allow things to happen. The recollection still makes me happy and grateful, and it stays with me even now. There was an ease between us, an unsaid recognition that this night had been unique and special, something to remember. And as I went off to sleep, I felt a sense of happiness I hadn't felt in a long time, happy for having had such a profound experience. When the morning light began to shine in, I felt a sense of tranquility that I hadn't had in a long time. Lying there comfortable and at peace, I realized how unusual it was for me to feel so comfortable with someone. Logan was already awake, and as our eyes met, we shared a calm, genuine smile that made everything feel real. There was no discomfort, just a mutual awareness of the night we had